what do you see when you see this pile? Do you see junk that should just be thrown out, or do you see some beautiful pieces that can be made into beautiful home decor? Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, you have landed on Ginger Chick Rehab, where I love to take secondhand finds and share with you how to make these pre-loved items over and make them loved again. So I love chippy paint as much as as the next guy, but this might be a little bit too chippy, but that underneath color is fabulous, and I'm not even really sure what it came off of. Only one side of it is painted white, and it's just like peeling right off. So we're going to go ahead and see how much of that chippy white paint I can get off, only because it's already falling off on its own. Now that I think I got most of it chipped off that was loose, I'm going to go ahead and get it cleaned up with some Dawn dish soap, some hot water. I'm pretty sure that I bought this piece at a barn sale, so it had been laying in a barn, and it could have been just the weather that eventually the paint had just chipped off, being that it got hot and cold. That does happen, but that's the chippiness we love, but that's a little too chippy. If you touch it and it just falls off, nobody wants to sweep their house that much. But I really do want to stick with that chippy look. It's already pretty chippy. I love that underneath green color. It's so vintage. And I know I could probably just use the backside, but why not have a couple layers of different chippiness since I left the other paint behind? So all I'm doing right now is I'm just taking candle wax, just a votive that I thrifted, just rubbing it all over the piece. And I see that I got a little loose spot there, but I'll deal with that in a second. So first off, I'm just going to put a whole bunch of candle wax all over this. So what that's going to do is prevent my paint from getting a really good adhesion to the board and the other paint itself. So the outer frame of this is just kind of shifted, so I'm just going to hammer it back into place. That's all it needs. It's actually a very tight fit. It just needs to be hammered back in. It probably had been dropped a couple times here or there, maybe. So to paint this and keep that chippy look, that aged farmhouse cottagecore type of look, I'm going to use some of the Sweet Pickins milk paint in the flour sack, which seems to be my go-to white for chippiness. So it's equal parts powder to equal parts water. You stir it until it's mixed up, and then stir it for another 2 minutes, and it kind of gets kind of frothy and makes some air bubbles, and you set it off to the side and you let it thicken up for 2 to 10 minutes, and it will be ready to paint. Being that I had candle wax underneath this paint, I didn't add any heat, and I just let this board dry on its own. And would you look at that gorgeous chippiness, crackle? Oh, just gorgeous. But I do need to seal this in before working on it, only because I don't want to take all the paint that I put right on there right back off. So I'm going to go ahead and seal it with a clear coat of Weather Defense. So I want to stencil some wording on this piece of cabinet. That's why I'm really kind of guesstimating what it probably was. But I could just stencil right over it and then chip off the paint afterwards. But then, you know, is it going to chip off too much of my lettering? So I'm going to go ahead and just take a like a spackling tool and then just get some of the big pieces that are pulling up off. Oh, I just absolutely love that color underneath. It's just amazing. Now, I know chippiness and cracking paint and all that aged paint is not everybody's vibe, but it definitely is mine, and I love it. I thought about making a stencil out of vinyl, but I was afraid that it would pull up more of the paint. So I opted just to use this Funky Junk stencil, this Antiques. Oh, it is just, I mean, it is just a perfect fit. Though I have to work with some curves, probably not the funnest thing, and I'm going to have to kind of push the stencil down as I'm coloring the letters, but that's okay. Perfectly okay. So I'm going to use Fusion's Coal Black paint to go ahead and do the dry sponge technique. So I just have a makeup sponge from the Dollar Tree store. I'm going to do like a pouncing technique, very gingerly, not very much paint on there. It's going to be faded looking, only because if I tried to like keep going over it and try to make it blacker and blacker, I risk just making a mess of my letters. So a little bit faded will be okay for the sign. Light pressure definitely gave it a little bit of a unique look. It definitely just looks like I put some lettering over the top of an old cabinet door. It all depends on what look you're going for. Maybe darker would have made it look like it was an old sign originally, but I like it. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking some 220 sandpaper, and I don't want my letters to be so crisp. So I'm just going in and letting them distress, hitting all of that. Like you can tell, it's getting a little bit chippier. So where the wax is underneath there is still kind of coming off, along with some of the lettering. But just a fun project, a fun little antique sign. So what's really going to make this look like it is an older piece is adding some of the Fusion's aging wax to it. So the Fusion aging wax is not a black and it's not a brown. It's a wonderful mixture. I'd almost call it a soot, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. What do you all think? But yes, so I'm just going to randomly put some on, and then I'm going to take some natural Homestead clear wax and then blend it all in. And what's going to happen is it's going to add what I call dirt or aging to the piece. It's really going to stick in the cracking that happened during the paint job, and really just take that really fresh white paint and just give it that little bit of age. So to finish this off, I'm going to go ahead and just add a simple picture hanger. Even though this piece is solid wood, it's not super heavy by any means. So just trying to find center. And of course, it's got to be some odd, like 30, like, what was it, like 29 3/4 or something like that. Couldn't have been some even exact measurement by any means to find center, but sometimes the things that we do to finish up a project. So I had this frame and picture come in an auction lot, and I decided to keep it. I know that it is worn, I know that it's broken, I know that it's missing pieces, but there's enough left that I think it is absolutely beautiful. And I've been looking for a frame to hold this older advertisement piece that needs to be behind glass, because every time you start to touch it too much, it's getting to be brittle. It's always nice to get a bonus piece in an auction haul that you didn't plan on even using, but I kind of just stuck it in the back thinking I love the age of this, and then finally came up with the idea of what to put in it. And so I'm going to use the rusty nails that they have holding the backing in. I'm going to take these eyelet hooks off. I'm not going to be reusing those. We just need to get the picture out. And I'll go ahead and put that in my stash. I'm not going to just throw it away. It's beautiful, it's old, and you never know when another project might come up that I might want to use it on. And it is very, very dirty, both sides, oddly enough. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this cleaned up, the glass cleaned up with just some Dawn dish soap, some hot water, the frame cleaned up with some Dawn dish soap and some hot water. I'm going to set that glass off to the side. I always get nervous when I'm working with glass because I don't want to break it and have to do some replacement, because I'd ruin the whole project. But setting it on a towel helps, and the glass is really sharp, so be careful so you don't cut yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and paint this piece, because that's going to hide all that brokenness, but I don't want to hide all that beautiful detail that's left. So I'm just going to do the same thing I did with the project before and use some candle wax just on those raised areas so that the paint doesn't really adhere to it. And I'm using the same flour sack that I had used on the previous project. I just made up a little bit more knowing I was going to paint both of these the same color. Thing about milk paint is it is totally unpredictable. You never know from project to project how it's going to react. So not any big like chippiness or anything like that, just some beautiful crazing. So I'm just taking that metal scraping tool and just slightly hitting the areas that I put the candle wax on, and then it was just coming off. So it's just peeking out that beautiful detail underneath. And then to seal the milk paint in, I did not spray this with any clear coat. I'm just going straight on with the waxes, so this will really grab some of that aging wax, which really isn't as dark as you would think that it is by any means, but it'll get into all that little crackage. Oh, the crazing, it'll just be beautiful. Of course, I wish this was an exact fit, but it's not at all. So I think I'm going to start off with very gingerly starting to cut this, because it's not, I mean, I guess you could photocopy it, but it's an older advertisement piece that I'm trying to salvage here. And then it has like where it's from in Michigan on the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead on the outside of the black line and cut that piece off. That's where it's brokenness. And then I'm going to try to figure out how I can add the Michigan town that this is from back in there, probably just overlapping it on one another. I don't want to, I think that's the fun. The wording and the age of the paper is fun, but also where it originated is also a key factor when it comes to advertising. Oh, first look at the green of this, which is gorgeous. And then it is just a gorgeous piece, is it not? So it's an old light fixture. The patina's awesome. The color is awesome. I want to be able to keep both of these pieces together because I want to make it into a candle holder. It's gorgeous. So as soon as I saw it, I'm like, that's exactly what I thought. But now how am I going to get a candle to be in there? So I'm going to have to work with it a little bit to achieve what is in my head. So I know that I can glue the two pieces together, but the candle still doesn't sit right. It still will fall through. So I need to glue something onto the bottom of it so that it stays upright and that it doesn't just fall through. So I do have one of these candle like holders that would work, but then I'm like, then I'm not using that piece, and then the base of the battery operated candle's too big, and yeah. But I finally went into my stash and I have this random piece of metal that I have no idea what it's for, but what it is for now is to be hot glued to the bottom of this so that my candle doesn't fall away through. I'm not sure if you noticed the piece of metal, it's not completely flat. One side has some bent metal for whatever reason, so I'm gluing it onto the very bottom. It works, and that way, like if I would have glued it on the little piece and then on the top of it, I would have had to deal with those bent metal pieces that would not have laid it flat. But doing it this way, I don't have to worry about it because it's on the bottom. And now I can glue my other piece that I wanted to keep these two pieces together. We're not ruining anything. Hot glue is removable if you really wanted it to be. But oh, I'm still just in love with the green of this. But still, if I just set the battery operated candle in that hole, it doesn't necessarily just stay straight up, especially since it's a grungy candle that has been waxed and aged. But I always like to, even though it's a newer piece, I want to make sure that it works. So even when they're new, sometimes they don't work. So we're going to go ahead and put a battery in it and pray for the best. All I'm going to do is take the bottom of the candle and I'm going to put a little bit of hot glue on that bottom and then put it directly into the candle area where I want it to be a candle. And I've got to do this kind of quick because it's that grungy candle is waxed and the hot glue will start to melt it. Lesson learned from previous project. So we'll just let that set up. Now it would be pretty just left as is, but I do have this brown wired pip berries that I think would be a beautiful accent wrapped around this. I don't think it's going to take away from that green patina, but it's going to blend the grungy candle that is so brown in with the base, but also go with the rusty crustiness that's on this light fixture. I thought I could pair these two together nicely. A coffee tin bank and, well, you would think it was a grater, but it says it's for soap. But the rusty crustiness, oh, is that not gorgeous? And I was surprised when I picked it up and it said soap on it. Great advertisement piece. And then that little bank, though, I'm going to need to take the lid off, and I'm going to have to figure out how I can attach these two together. And that lid doesn't want to come off. So I might need a little bit of a prying to. Hopefully I don't scrape the metal off up too awful much trying to remove the lid. But actually it just needed a release. So I just by chance have saved this rusty piece of wire that I took off a different project. That's hence why we stash stash on items. And the grater does have holes that I can feed it through. I wasn't quite sure at first, but well, I thought it was maybe solid when I bought it, but now that I have it in my hands and I'm really studying it, yay for it having holes that I could stick some wire through, and I don't have to patina the wire because it's almost like it's a perfect match. So I will be able to attach this on. But I'm not just going to attach it and think that it's going to stay with just the wire. I am going to go ahead and put some hot glue on the back of it just to make sure it has a good bond and it won't just slip from that wire. So after getting that wire twisted tight, I hung it up on the wall, and now I'm going to add a little bit of green. Now that's cute as is, and I could probably just leave it alone, but I had a vision. So I'm going to take some of this ticking fabric, and I'm just going to rip off a little piece because I really like the wire's nice hanging, and I don't want to cut it any shorter because it's got a nice tight fit. But I do want to kind of add a little bit of fabric, a little bit more color next to that wire. So just a little snip on this fabric, and then I'll be able to pull just a little strip. I'll have some strings to cut off, and then I'm going to go ahead and age it a little bit using some instant coffee. I don't want to have this bright new fabric along that rusty and aged crusty salvaged fine. So just spritzed it down, mist it with some water, and then I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of the instant coffee on there and mist a little bit more water on there, and then just make sure that the piece of fabric is thoroughly saturated. Now you could just add the instant coffee into some water and melt it that way and then add it, but you would get all the same dyeing of it. I like to do it this way. That way I have dark spots and light spots. What did they say? There's a method to my madness. Yes. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put it on a towel and just kind of soak some of the moisture up. I'm not going to worry about drying it by any means. I'm just going to go ahead, stretch it out, make sure that I don't have any other strings. And when I was gluing the tin onto the grater, I knew that I wanted to wrap a ribbon around, so I didn't put any hot glue on that top area. So it should anyway, just slide down and I can make a simple knot. So, I live for moments like this where I can use things in my stash. So I have this little number. I love numbers. I don't even know what this is off from or why it is looks like a piece of license plate. I'm not even positively sure. But I am going to slide the top of that bank back into this little container so that they can always be together, that I'm not just going to throw that away. So I'm going to add that little number in there. There's just something about numbers. And then I thought, you know what? I think it needs a little bit more lightness to go with the front advertisement on the tin. So I just have these little baby breasts that I got off of Amazon that you kind of have to fluff out. And somebody told me to use hairspray. I always forget about that hack, but yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and spread it out. And I think it's that lightness that top needed, and it'll hold that piece of metal a little bit better. Next piece I think is actually probably, I'm guessing, a grain scoop. Not a measuring device, but a grain scoop is my guesstimate. Not positive. If you know something different, please let me know down in the comments. But that rusty, crusty metal, the advertisement still on the front, the awesome handle, it is in wonderful shape. So I'm not painting this up. I want you to see all that beauty. The only thing I'm going to do to the outer part of this is give it a quick washing. It's not terribly dirty, but I want to make sure that's a little bit cleaner. I'm going to use this like it's a vase, and I'm in love with this Baby's Breath from Hobby Lobby. So I just recently picked up a couple dozen because it's the sale, so you got to get it while it's on sale, and I love having it on hand. And then some Dollar Tree floral foam to stuff so that my florals aren't going to move around. So all I do, I don't hot glue my floral foam in. I just kind of keep squishing it until it's nice and tight, because sometimes that's a pain to hot glue into the bottom, and then it's hard to get off the bottom if somebody wants to change it out and reuse it. So I just stuff it as tight as I possibly can. And then on top of that, I'm going to add some of this crinkled grassy paper just to hide that green of that floral foam. You're not really going to see this, but I just like to cover that up. So just a little dab here and there. As you see, I didn't take the floral foam all the way up. It's not a level area by any means, but yeah, just something to cover that up. I find that I get more out of my stems if I cut them apart. So I'm going to go ahead by just cutting off some of the sections and then cutting them down even more, kind of seeing what height I needed them to be, so that's way too tall. So cutting down individual little spikes, trying to leave a little bit of the metal to push into the floral foam. I don't need any glue if I'm pushing that in. It should stay just fine. So we're just going to start working with as much of the Baby's Breath as I feel it is nice and full. I like my arrangements to be full. So, but there's that color, the color of this Baby's Breath, the way that they did it with that muted green color, and then that little bit of the tan age on that floral flower of the Baby's Breath, it's just gorgeous. So it kind of it's one of those florals that you can use as an accent all year long. don't necessarily want to cover up too much of the tin scoop, but I do want to add a little embellishment to it. So I'm just taking some of this drop cloth fabric. I'm going to take 3 strips, and I'm going to do the same thing that I did with that ticking stripe fabric and coffee stain dye it too. I think it's like a nice hue, a nice accent color. The fabric itself might be a little bit yellow compared to the flowers, but dyeing it with the instant coffee I think will tone it down a notch. So since this fabric is wet, one simple knot I think will hold it. And when I was looking for an embellishment, this is actually a candle holder. So I thought, you know, what is this going to look like? Can I hang it from this little area? I don't want anything to take away from, like, I wanted to accent the wording, the embossing on the tin itself. Just simple, something so simple. And I just by chance have another one of the grungy candles that's a lighter in color that matches the fabric that I dyed. And if it works, oh my goodness, who would have thought to do that? But I'm glad I was in my stash looking through things. So what did you think? Yes, taking some old salvaged, aged pieces that might have been a little bit worse for wear and making them into beautiful home decor is definitely my vibe. I cannot pass these items up. You know, individually, they may not be something special at that moment, but playing with them, putting some decor in them, oh, do they have my heart. So let me know down in the comments which one of the items I made over for you today were your favorite, and if I have inspired you to look at that junk pile at thrift stores, estate sales, garage sales, wherever it is that you can find pre-loved items. So again, thanks for watching today's video. And as always, if you're part of our YouTube family, thank you so much. And if you're new and you're checking out this channel for the first time and you love pre-loved items, you like to make them over, you like to display them in their house, please hit that subscription button along with the notification bell so you know when we've uploaded a new video. And we will see you next time, guys, and you can see what we're up to. Bye!